Hi, and thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about trauma and neuroplasticity and how Yoga Nidra can help us to heal from our trauma by utilizing neuroplasticity. When we experience trauma, our amygdala and hippocampus are activated. The amygdala is responsible for our emotional reaction to things, and it sounds our alarm system that activates the sympathetic nervous system and tells us that we're in danger. The hippocampus stores our memories, and when we experience trauma, we get stuck in loops in these two parts of the brain. Every time we experience something that takes us back to that emotional, traumatic event, we go back into the memory of the original event. When we experience trauma, it prevents us from developing important neurological pathways in the prefrontal cortex. As we grow, we develop the prefrontal cortex, and our brain is fully developed around the age of 27. If we experience trauma in our young adult life or even our childhood, it can stunt our development and prevent neurological pathways from forming. When these neurological pathways don't form, we often find ourselves reacting when we could respond if we had had different experiences. Every time we react, we reinforce these patterns of behavior, and we go back into the original trauma. Yoga Nidra utilizes the science behind neuroplasticity to help the brain to undo the doing without a lot of story. Talk therapy is great, and yoga therapy can be very effective in helping people heal from trauma. Ultimately, the brain has to do the work on its own, regardless of the modality of healing you choose. When the brain repatterns and reprograms, it actually creates new neurological pathways in the prefrontal cortex. These new neurological pathways create a different option, and they help individuals heal from traumatic experiences. When we move through the practice of Yoga Nidra, we are working from the outside in, moving through Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manamaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. When we arrive in the Pranamaya and Manamaya kosha, we're actually touching in on the amygdala and the hippocampus. And when we use visualization in Yoga Nidra and a tool found within yoga called Pratipakshibhavana, the comparison of opposites, we go back into the memories that we have had based on our experiences, and we depolarize our perception of them. Let's say, for example, that you had an experience where you fell out of a tree. If I have you visualize a tree, you might associate that tree with a past experience. This is abstract association. You might remember we went over this previously. If you go into abstract association and you go back into your own trauma, and then I counter that with the opposite of a tree, the ground, this might help you unconsciously to neutralize your polarity between the two. Pratipakshibhavana is embedded within Yoga Nidra, and the purpose is to help create new neurological pathways. When we create neurological pathways, we are leveraging the science behind neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to change, to grow and develop, even after it's finished developing. Neuroplasticity plays a role in healing from traumatic brain injuries, strokes, and other events that impact the brain's cognitive function. When we work with Pratipakshibhavana, we actually are doing work with both hemispheres of the brain, the rational hemisphere and the more creative and esoteric hemisphere. When we communicate between the two sides of the brain in this way, we create an opportunity to perceive the object differently than we did in our past experience. You see, if we continue to draw from our past experience and project that experience onto whatever object we are experiencing in the present moment, we're actually not in the present moment at all, but rather we are living in the past and projecting those past feelings, thoughts, and emotions onto a present experience. Yoga Nidra helps us to create new neurological pathways to balance the polarity between our perception. I hope you found this lecture helpful. Be well.